Hi, I'm Cindy, and this is the Community Effect Podcast. On this show, we talk about all things teaching and learning, from building authentic relationships to creating a classroom culture where students thrive. We dig into mindset, motivation, engagement, and behavior, because real classroom success isn't just about lesson plans. It's about the community you build. These are conversations for teachers who want more than to just survive. And these are strategies for educators who are ready to take their community to the next level. This is the Community Effect Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Community Effect Podcast. I am Cindy Robinson. I am your host, and I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. I have a special treat for you. I have a guest with me today. Her name is Jenny Esposito. She has been a teacher for the past 24 years. 20 of those years have been right here in Arizona and have been with the same school district. So she is very, very dedicated. She has been teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for those 20 years. Some combination of that. Right now, she's actually teaching all 3 grade levels. And I do have the utmost respect for middle school teachers because it's definitely a different, teaching environment. And so I'm just really excited to have Jenny here with us today. We're going to be talking about building authentic teacher-student relationships, which is part of the authentic relationship, part of the ACT formula. And we're going to talk with Jenny about how she builds those relationships with the 98 students that she has. And I am always in awe of this because, like I said, I've known Jenny for 20 years and she does such a great job of connecting with kids. And it's just such an important part of building your community. So Jenny, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. So Jenny, just share a little bit about your journey and, starting as a teacher and then, what you did and why you're at where you're at right now.
Okay. Yeah, I've been teaching for the last 20 years, and I started back in Chicago where I taught in my middle school where I went to school, actually. And yes. And I started at a 2nd through 4th grade Bridge to Success program, which helped ELL students eventually learn the language and get back into the mainstream classroom. Then I eventually went on to teach 7th grade for EL kids too, which were having trouble in the mainstream, and they just needed some other pieces to help them get back in with everybody else. Later on, then I eventually started at a charter school where I taught 5th and 6th grade looped. But starting out was never easy. I mean, starting out as a teacher is a huge challenge. I mean, there's going to be times where, you feel it's a hopeless situation.
Yeah.
But I tell you, after 20 years, I've gained so much. And I wish I knew the things I knew today. I wish I knew when I first started out teaching. Had I known about building those authentic relationships head on instead of just teaching at the kids and teaching with the kids, and maybe being not just a teacher, but like a manager in the classroom, having them claim their own ownership for their learning, building their own goals, but if I hadn't learned as much as I have about students, I probably my teaching wouldn't be as strong.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes because you have an amazing teacher mindset. You're always looking for ways to improve your practice and reflecting on your impact. And so that's one of the reasons why you got to where you are today. I can tell you that because I've watched you grow over the years and I've watched you change. And I remember when we talked about tribes and you were like a sponge. You sucked in all that information about tribes and building, inclusion and belonging and, influence and looking at what the tribes community, was all about. And you used a lot of the aspects from the tribes book in your classroom. And it was just so cool to watch you implement new strategies and try new things. And, some years one thing works and some years something doesn't work. And so you have to have multiple, things in your toolbox, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. If you don't, if you don't build those authentic relationships and build a community where kids feel safe and inclusive and valued, it's
a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's having the students also believe in themselves. It's half the battle,
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not believing in themselves, how are you going to gain any growth with them academically? And it's not just about academics, as if a test score would tell you what their intelligence is. I tell them all the time, everyone's intelligent their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has something to lend to society, to this world, and, it lets them know that basically there's equity in the classroom, and everybody can learn.
It's interesting because you were talking about students and that they need to believe in themselves. And that is one of the things that you help them do through those relationships that you build with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to hear, 98 kids, Jenny. Wow. And I know at one point you had like 128 kids or something, 130, I don't know. You had a lot of kids coming through your classroom. And so how do you build those authentic relationships? Like, how do you get to know every one of the kids in your classroom?
Well, part of it has to do with beginning of the day, checking in with them. I mean, I'm just going to say a little piece of each one, checking in with them, rewarding them, having celebrations with them, recognizing them, not just for their academic, success, but maybe for something they did as, in their character, being part of their lives outside of school, also gaining relationships with their parents, especially during parent-teacher conferences, and letting the parents know too that we're both working together to make their kids successful. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm working on a career unit with them right now, and I tell them, I don't feel like it's a job. It feels like it's my calling. It's something that I feel so happy to go to every single day. Now, I didn't always think that. Beginning of my career, it just seemed like it was uphill battle. But little by little, as I gained a little piece of it, and then the tribes piece came along, I started to grow even more once I got here to Arizona. So I'd been here in this district for 20 years. And the first year I met you and you had introduced tribes to me, it was like another world of, how can I build a climate where kids are going to feel safe and happy? I mean, I already got the being positive and, I just have this motivating attitude that anybody can succeed no matter what, I mean, I have kids that even tell me I should be a positive speaker sometimes,
Yeah.
So I really get into what I'm teaching. I'm very passionate. And, when it comes down to checking in with them, it's not just a hi. It's giving them a high five, a fist pump. Hey, how are you? Good morning. Good morning is a big thing. And I even have kids even say good morning to me now more than ever. How are you doing? How was your day, Miss Espo? It's not even just at the beginning of the day, it's throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
I get kids excited to get a good grade on a response. And Miss Espo, they're calling me over. Hey, look at this.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. And being excited for those little things that mean the world to them, and recognizing that makes them feel valued. And that's only the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, one little piece is like another golden nugget in their treasure chest. They want to keep adding to it and building off of it.
So I'm hearing that you have learned to be a communicator, right? That you've learned to listen and to notice and to pay attention to how your students are feeling. And, are they having a good day? Are they having a bad day? Who do I need to check in with? What are their interests, right? So you really get to know all facets of kids and communicating with our families, which is really important to have parents as partners. I mean, when you have them on your team, right? And they're working with you instead of fighting against you. That is such a positive. It's a message that gets sent to the kids, right?
Right.
That, wow, like my parents, you like Miss Espo, like this is great. And they learn that you are so authentic and true to who you are. And that when you tell them something, it's the truth. Like you mean it. They know that you mean it. And I think that that's really important when you're building relationships with kids, And you were talking about too, like, doing stuff outside of school. So like you used to coach, you would go and referee their sporting events, you got involved in their lives in other ways that showed that you cared. There's always like that teacher student volleyball games, and or sometimes you just go out on the playground with them and just and play.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, sometimes I go to lunch and sit down and eat lunch with them too.
There you go.
So and believe it or not, they're like, oh my goodness, what's Miss Espo doing? She just sat down at my table, and they all like freeze up. I'm like, what are you freezing up for? I'm like, what's up? What you guys talking about? And just getting the conversation.
Well, it's gotta be a little weird at first.
It is weird. It is.
I don't think that they've experienced that.
No. Yeah, and even when we had our trips, our pride trips, we have these trips based on students completing their assignments on time and their behavior, their exemplary behavior, and we like to reward them every trimester. So today we were out at the park and girls were taking their shoes and socks off and playing volleyball in the sand. I said, okay, well, I'm going to do that, even though I'm going to pay for it tomorrow. So I got out there and was playing volleyball. I felt like I was 13 again. It's also being a kid at heart.
Yeah.
Being a teacher is like I said, teaching is just a piece of it. But I really do believe that building those relationships with those students is the most important piece. It's the foundational piece, because if you're just there just to teach to them, there's no action. There's no act. No, it's not action. Another way too. I have a very open classroom. I build on positive mindset. So that's the way my classroom looks. It's got positive things on the walls and sayings and quotes. I'm a huge, obviously, English language arts teacher. I'm a big quote person. But a big piece of what the kids see in me and my excitement for teaching and my love of learning, I mean, sometimes it gets them excited about it.
Yeah. And I know your belief in them and your enthusiasm for teaching is infectious, right? It can't be faked, which is what's so cool about you. You can't fake that. And the other thing I love is that you've grown into that, right? Because I know that we were talking earlier, you said at the beginning of your career, when students would misbehave, you took that very personally.
Yes.
Right. And so your response was always reactive. It was always very punitive.
And then this was the consequence, and that was it. It wasn't, it was just a black and white piece, when really, even over these past 20 years, I've learned to have those conversations with students and even pull them aside or pull them out in the hall and have a one-on-one, conversation with them about what happened. There's no bad kids. There's only kids that there's kids that make bad choices. And, like adults, we all make mistakes and make choices. But reflecting on it, I believe, is a huge part of it. Just wherever you're at, just making it private and having those conversations with middle school students is so, it makes them, I'll be honest with you, it makes them feel valued that you took the time to even have the conversation with them.
Yeah. You were interested enough in how they were feeling and what they were doing. Right. And you cared enough to have that conversation.
Right. Yeah. Instead of 20 years ago, just, hey,
you did this, you're done.
You're done. You're at detention.
Yeah.
You get to do this, or you stay after school, whatever it was. I mean, instead of just always giving the consequence, which they know there's consequences, but the students know what the expectations are. They understand what the way the day unfolds, or the class unfolds, I should say. 'Cause having 4 classes, it's, and working with, various types of students, they know exactly how the classroom runs. And kids have freedom in my classroom, but that's not something you can obviously have the first few weeks. You have to teach them about the classroom. I tell them always, this is not just my classroom, it's our classroom. This is where we're all learning. This is where we all make mistakes. This is where we all build and collaborate together so that we become better individuals.
Yeah.
Well,
and building that predictable environment for them reduces a lot of anxiety, right? They know exactly what to expect. Right. You are the same person today that you were yesterday. It's not like it's a change up. Right. And so I think that that's really important too. And you have fun with your kids, which is great. It's one of those things where, you are able to laugh and enjoy the moment with them without being sarcastic. Because I think sarcasm doesn't go off very well with middle school kids because they never know how to take you, right? And when you hear when you hear that saying, like you need to show up as the same person every day. Well, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have to be the same person every day because some days,
you're human.
Some days you're going to come in rough, and some days you're going to come in, really excited and ready to go. But what that means really is not how you show up. It means that what are those expectations? Those have to be consistent every day. So one of the things that I've noticed that I've seen throughout my career, which it's challenging for kids, is when they come in, let's say one day, and they're like, "Yo, what's up, Miss Espo? Hey, high five," and they think they can be your buddy, right? But then the next day they show up and they're like, "Yo, Miss Espo," and you're like, "No, we don't talk to Miss Espo like that." Right. So you were one way yesterday, you're another way today, and kids get confused, right? And they don't, and that really severs relationships because then they don't know who you are and what to expect. Yeah. But you show up the same way every day, which is amazing because they know exactly who Miss Espo is.
And I have to go back and remember some of the things my professors told us. And one of the things that always resonated with me is they told us not to smile till Christmas.
Which is wrong.
Which is very wrong. However,
not great advice.
No, not the best. Yes, and I still remember that. You made me dawn on that for a moment. Yeah. But it's not that you don't smile. You can smile. You have boundaries, though. You have to build those boundaries, though, within the classroom, too. I mean, you can be friendly with them. You're just not be their friend. I mean, I started out my career with, this is the way it is. It's my way or the highway. And then it became, okay, I want to be friends with my students. And that went wrong.
Yeah.
And then gradually I started to realize and shape my classroom into this community, this place where kids know that, hey, Miss Espo's fun and she's fair. She's strict, but she's fun and fair.
Yeah.
And they know that.
Well, they know that you respect them, right? You treat students with respect.
Yes.
And so you get respect back from kids.
Yeah. And what's hard is that a lot of teachers think, well, respect is earned. We have that notion that, oh, well, respect is earned. Well, I'm sorry. If you don't respect the students too, you're not going to get it back. Yeah. And it's really important to own that respect and to demonstrate that respect, because I believe that I have less issues with behavior because of that respect and trust that I have with my students.
Yeah. Well, and part of that respect comes from how you talk with them, right? The encouraging words that you use. It comes from you getting curious about behaviors versus reactive to behaviors, right? That's demonstrating respect and empathy and understanding that we all have bad days. I mean, you are such a huge proponent of growth mindset. And so if you are to, get reactive based on a behavior, then you're not in congruency with that belief of growth mindset, right? You're just saying, nope, you made a mistake, you're done. Well, that doesn't align with your belief that kids can grow and learn from their mistakes.
Right.
So by being curious, you're staying true to your belief as a teacher that, everybody's going to learn, and yeah, there are times, right, sometimes the consequence is well earned. It really is. Mm-hmm. But I think that we also, when we're building those relationships with kids, a lot of that comes from that empathy that we have of understanding, like, man, I remember what it was like to be a kid. I remember making that poor choice, but what could you have done differently? And how would that have turned out? And then what actually happened and how did that turn out? And then which one do you think you might want to try next time? You know, what might you do differently? And so just having that, you know, helping them work through it, because, you know, they don't have this magical thing that says, you know, oh, here's the solution to your problem, right? I mean, we learned that. We learned that because people have helped us walk through it.
Well, I think, too, a really powerful piece is understanding that kids come from different dynamics. You know,
they react differently to things, don't they?
Sure they do. Yeah. And they come from different home lives. They have different settings. I mean, you know, some kids have an atmosphere where they hear a lot of arguing at home, or their parents are going for a divorce. Or you have those foster kids that have been through so much, you know.
And you know a lot about that because you fostered some students, you know, I have some kids.
Well, I fostered students, and yes, and I've adopted one. I just recently adopted a young lady that was in my 8th grade class years ago. And I learned so much too, and have built on those relationships, just understanding what a lot of these foster kids go through, you know, how many schools they've been through, how many families, or they've been in a group home, and group homes are, you know, some are better than others, but let's just say this, you know, knowing what I've seen, you know, and understanding the other mental health piece. It's so huge, you know, because if you're not empathetic towards what they're going through, how are they going to sit in a classroom and learn?
Yeah. Well, I think you make a really good point, because when it comes to building relationships with students, some of those relationships are going to develop and grow very easily. And some of those are just going to take some time, right? It's like peeling the layer of an onion, right? Because these kids will come so guarded, they're not really sure. Like, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but there are students who haven't had an adult that they could count on. And so when you're saying, hey, I'm that person, I am that person that you can count on, I am here for you, that is so hard for them to understand. And so taking that wall down takes time, and those relationships take time to build, and that trust takes time to develop. And so, you know, again, student relationships are just so important to the dynamics of your class, you know, and in building that community, because once you know your students, like truly know your kids, then you start to incorporate that information into your classroom, right? Into your lessons and into how you group kids and the dynamics that are happening, because you want to ensure that they're having positive first interactions, you know? And so if I know certain things about Sally and I know certain things about Johnny, and I know they're not going to gel, I'm not going to put them together to start. I'm going to give them more time to get to know each other before I start to group them. So it's like, the more you know about your kids, the more you can start to create this environment for collaboration and for student discourse and that kind of thing that will turn out to be positive interactions versus potentially challenging ones. And, you know, they all have to work with people that they don't like. I mean, that's life, right? You have to, or people that they're unsure of. Because I think that with my kids, they thought they didn't like somebody. It was just because they didn't know them. Right. And then once they started to understand, once they could see, like, oh, well, I like this and she likes that too. Or I've got 5 brothers and she's got 5 brothers. And once they start to be able to see commonalities and ways that they're the same, then those relationships start to develop. But if I haven't built a teacher-student relationship first, it's really hard to get my kids to have those relationships.
I agree. I agree totally. And I remember there's an activity I even do that I've completed at the beginning of the school year, where I have them find somebody that they have a commonality with, and they have to sign each other's papers. You know, oh well, I've done this. You know, I have 5 siblings. Like, you know, or there's a different choice board, and they go around and try to check off or
someone who
is similar to what they like. So that's one thing I've done before. Another positive, and
which gives you a lot of information too.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's a big piece. Other than filling out, tell me about your hobbies and tell me about this. But you've got to consistently, though, have those conversations, because once you have a piece of something that they love and you allow them to have a choice in, let's say, what they write about, say they're journaling about something, but they don't know what to journal about, and they want to find something that, hey, journal about, you love playing an instrument, you love to play sports. You're trying to find something to make connections with them so that they're more engaged in what they're learning.
I bet there are times when they're like, you know that I like instruments? Like, they're like shocked, right? How do you know that?
Are you kidding?
They know everything about you.
It's so funny you say that, because today I was talking with 8th graders, and, the big thing is who's dating who. And I knew who was dating who, and the kids are like, how do you know? How do you know? Well, I know that you guys have been in and out of a relationship, because I can tell when I see certain kids performing in class and they're not performing.
Yeah.
They're going through some rough times sometimes, and it's just funny. Just with 8th graders, the puppy love, the dating thing.
You're like, I'm a fly on the wall. I'm everywhere.
Yes. And they think you don't notice, but you do. It's when you're walking around the classroom consistently, you try to stay away from sitting in your desk all the time. I couldn't imagine sitting at my desk all the time. I have to be up. I have to be walking around.
Huge point.
I have to be managing, with the students and guiding them. I mean, besides having a lesson and having them, and model it and do the I do, we do, you do. It's so important to walk around and manage the classroom and still continue to be part of that lesson, so that to confirm, that they're understanding.
Yeah. Well, you even do a great job too of giving individualized personal feedback, which is something that you do really well too. And again, when students recognize that you know them that well, and you celebrate their big win, and you celebrate, hey, you grew 20 growth points in the last 2 weeks, like, what a great job. What have you been doing to have that kind of success? This is so cool. Like, I mean, they learn to trust you, and I think that for me as a teacher, and tell me if it's the same for you, but for me, my goal was always to be the one adult in their life. If they didn't have anybody else, I wanted to be that one reliable individual that they could come to that was solid for them. And I think we talked earlier about, I think this is so important to relationships, right? And especially when you think about, what kids like to do outside of school. And we talked earlier about this young lady that you were coaching softball, and I actually did like a year of assistant coaching with you. And we had this one girl who hadn't played softball before, and she threw kind of funny. It was almost like a shot put. Like a shot put, right? And so we started calling you. We were like, yeah, shot put. We were kind of calling her shot put. And she had the best sense of humor, and she was ready for it. Like, we had built a relationship with her where that was working for her. Yeah, that was working for her. But she's probably like 26 years old now. And we still talk with her. I mean, we bumped into her at the grocery store one day. Remember, I took a picture and I sent it to you. I'm like, I saw shot put today. Oh my gosh. And it's the cool thing is when you build those really strong relationships, they last. I still have students that I taught in Tahoe in kindergarten 29 years ago that follow me on Facebook, that we sent message. One of the girls, she sent me a picture of a note that I had written inside one of her books when she was in kindergarten.
That's powerful.
I mean, it's cool stuff, And I get to see my Dylan. Oh, I love my Dylan, who was in kindergarten. He broke my toe. So, like, I'll never forget him. But, it's like, I still get to interact with them, and I get to see how they've grown up and the things that they're doing in their lives. And it's so nice to know, right, that I have had an impact. Yes. And it continues. I think about my dad, who was a high school teacher and a basketball coach, and then he became a middle school principal. And for his 80th birthday this year, we surprised him down in Huntington Beach. We had our whole family come out, and we had like 7 basketball players from the 70s come to his 80th birthday, and they serenaded him. I mean, he was so loved, and he was a tough guy. You know, he was a tough coach, and he was a tough teacher, but they loved him so much. Those relationships were so strong. And so you have an opportunity as a teacher, like you get to make or break their day. That's just how it is, right? You get to decide, because like I said before, we set the tone. We set how everything is going to lay out. We set that environment for students for their learning. And Jenny, you do such an amazing job of that. And I'm so proud of you that you are coachable, that you are reflective, that you care so much about kids. And these kids that work with you are so lucky to have you. So thank you for being with me today.
All right. Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure to be here today.
Yeah. And so I hope that you guys got something out of this conversation today. Maybe it's a new strategy that you want to try. Maybe you're just sitting there thinking, yay, I've built these great relationships. I'm so proud of myself. And you should be. You should be so proud of yourself. And so, you can reach me through email on etp@etpcindyrobinson.com. You can check me out and DM me on Instagram at Cindy or C Robin Got Kids. There you go. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss one of these episodes. If you have a teacher friend that you think could really use this and would enjoy it, please share this with them. And if you're feeling especially nice, it would be amazing if you would leave a review. I would be so grateful. So until next time, my friends, thank you so much for being here. Keep doing the great work that you're doing. I mean, teachers are amazing.
And so are you.
Yeah, I love you.
Love you too.
All right, guys, have a great day. Thanks. Bye.